I'm here with Jeremiah Francis, Hearthstone expert, and Jeremiah has brought a pretty sweet deck for us to take a look at today. This is a Zoolock deck. So in this deck, we'll put the deck list up on the screen there. We got 2 Forbidden Rituals, 2 Flame Imps, 2 Possessed Villagers, 2 Power Overwhelming, 2 Voidwalker, 2 Dark Peddler, 2 Darkshire Councilman, and 2 Imp Gang Boss. And then for the neutral cards, we got an Abusive Sergeant, Argent Squire, 2 Direwolf Alphas, a Flame Juggler, 2 Knife Jugglers, a Spawn of N'Zoth, 2 Defender Vargas, 1 Leroy Jenkins, 2 Sea Giant, and I think was my favorite card in the deck, and probably yours as well, 1 Gormok the Impaler. Now this Zoolock deck, it's so good, and it's such a great home for Gormok, because I don't think there has been any other competitive ladder decks that have utilized Gormok before.
Yeah, like not much people have used Gormok, not much people can find much use for him anyway in any other decks other than some zoo decks. And this is the perfect deck for him.
I think it really is. So, Jeremiah, why don't you tell us a little bit about the matchups for this Zoolock deck?
The matchups for Zoolock, you want to be very, very cautious against any control type decks. So you're going to be watching out for board clears from some rogues, most control warriors, your priests, your mages. You're going to try to want to play around their big controls.
And what are the best matchups for this deck?
The best matchups are against some tempo decks and mainly a lot of more aggro decks because this one seems to push aggro best.
So what's your game plan going into a match with, say, Totem Shaman, a deck that has seen a lot of gain in popularity, probably because of how cheap it is? You probably see that a lot. So what's your strat going into that match?
Against Totem Shaman, I want to play my most stickiest minions as I can early. That would be Argent Squire, a Voidwalker, Possessed Villager, so you can really get that board presence. So when they try to push out their Pharaoh Spirits for taunts, you can get past them easily by buffing them up with Abusive Sergeant. Or say if they play a Flame Wreath Faceless, which is a 4-cost, 7/7, you can Power Overwhelming, say one of your Flame Imps or anything else with about 3 attack and just easily kill that and keep pushing for face.
So you want to get ahead and you want to stay ahead, and the cards that definitely help you do that are Gormok, again, awesome in the deck. Things like the Imp Gang Boss, so you can attack into their weaker minions, get an Imp, use that in combination with things like the Direwolf Alpha to really push that damage in. So the aggro matchups are great for this deck. The control matchups, not so much. So tell us how you play going against your control mages or decks like that.
I'll use Mage as an example. When I'm going into a match, I like to think, all right, what deck are they playing? What are they playing right now? How are they trying to manipulate my board to see if they're about to do a board clear? So what you want to mainly do is push on the board, and if they start pushing for, like, say, a Flame Strike turn 7, or they're trying to push for 2 damage Blizzard on turn 6 against your whole minions, you're going to want to try to play around that and hold minions into your hand. So when they do board wipe you, you can instantly play out more and more minions and reflood the board.
So when do you use your hero power against these more controlling decks?
You want to try to use your hero power when you're ahead or looking for answers. The best time to use your hero power is when you're definitely ahead. So when you're playing, like, say, you have the board filled up a bit, and you don't want to play much minions because you might play into, say, a Flame Strike, so you're going to want to try to life tap into some more cards for you to play later on.
Yeah, that life tap is great to kind of like out card draw them when you're forcing them to clear your board when they don't have a ton of pressure. Life tap every turn, draw a new card, see what you get, and then once they do end up having to Flame Avia, then you just reload, go to face, finish the game. So what are the absolute worst matchups? What are the matchups you hate seeing with this deck?
The matchups I hate seeing the most would have to be, it would be Cthulhu Druid and Dragon Priest and Control Priest. Those are the 3 worst matchups you can go against.
So what about them specifically makes them so abysmal for the Zoolock deck?
With Dragon Priest, they're able to put out really high health minions with decent attack against all of your minions, so it's very, very hard to try to get past that wall as they'll control you down. And with Control Priest, they're able to stay back, kill all of your most threat minions, and then put out, again, a big creature to just deal with your minions.
So what are some other synergies that we have in this deck that people might not recognize right off the bat?
Some of the synergies would be, like you said earlier, would be about Imp Gang Boss into Direwolf. Every time your Imp Gang Boss will take damage, it'll pump out a Imp. So what you want to try to do is get your Imp Gang Boss all the way to the far left and have your Direwolf Alpha in the middle of the board.
And things like Knife Juggler with Forbidden Ritual as well is just great if your opponent has a bunch of one defense minions, just mow them down with a bunch of Knife Juggler triggers. Like I think that's great against the more aggressive decks in the field. Tell me a little bit about Darkshire Councilman.
Darkshire Councilman is one of your win conditions and also one of your best early board pressure minions. Darkshire Councilman has a high health with 5 and a low attack of 1, but the kicker to him is every time a minion is played, he gains 1 attack. So he has synergy with Forbidden Ritual, say like turn 6, you can have nothing on your board but Darkshire Councilman, pump out Forbidden Ritual, and boom, you have at least you have a 6-5. No, it's not 6-5, 7-5.
7-5. Yeah, and that'll clear the board pretty quick against anything. Like, there's not much that can stand up to that, and even with 5 on the back end, like has the capability of surviving a lot of attacks into your opponent's board as well. So I really like Spawn of N'Zoth in this deck as well, where you're going wide and you have the ability to power overwhelming that, death rattle it, pump up your whole team, and go to face.
Yeah, he's really good for clearing out bigger threat minions, and also if you're controlling the board a lot, you can easily throw him into something with about 2 attack just to kill him off, to power up your board more, and keep pushing for that damage.
So how often do you power out a Sea Giant really early with this deck?
As early as about turn 4 or 5, you can probably pump out a Sea Giant, depending on what kind of deck the other player is playing.
So, I mean, going 4 minions into a Sea Giant has got to be pretty tough for a lot of decks to beat. Like, their Wrath won't clear with the Sea Giant, or their single kill spell gets rid of the Sea Giant, but they still have to deal with the 4 minions.
Yeah. What you'd have to watch out for when playing Sea Giant is about mages, polymorph, warriors, whirlwind into execute, or ravaging ghoul into execute, or just cruel taskmaster into execute. Yeah. So don't play against warriors.
You got to watch out for that execute.
Yeah, you got to watch out for execute. It's a pain in the butt.
So we got a Dark Peddler in the deck as well. What is the card that you always want to see when you're discovering that 1-cost card with Dark Peddler?
With Dark Peddler, you always want to try to find Power Overwhelming. It's one of the best cards for the deck, but also Dark Peddler is really situational when you're playing on what kind of 1-drop you want. You might want to more recoil to clear out a minion to get more draw. As you can see, the deck doesn't have much draw mechanic to it.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any single draw spells, but of course the Warlock power is great for making up for that lack of card draw that the deck has. Anything else you want to say about the deck there, Jeremiah?
Nothing too much else other than try to control the board, and if you get a Leroy, try to hold your Power Overwhelmings in hand as much as you can so you can push for like about a 14 damage combo with 2 Power Overwhelmings with them.
Yeah, I think this deck is super sweet. I know that as soon as we're done here, I'm going to dust whatever I can to get enough to buy that Gormok and finally break down and get a Leroy Jenkins, and I'm going to take this to the ladder this week, and I think it's going to be super sweet.
Yeah, go do it. You'll probably climb up on the ladder. And as a matter of fact, for any player taking this deck, you can play it anywhere on the ladder. It's good in Legend, it's good rank 5 to 1, it's good in the low ranks. Just depends on the player.
All right, awesome. Thanks very much.
All right, thank you.